Hello. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Is the Good?
can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. I'll let you lead the discussion. There is one more person.
Did Rahul join already?
Um, no, it's not in here yet.
Guys who are in audience, you guys can hear us, right? Your audio is fine before we start the event. Okay, perfect.
Only one person missing.
Also, we won't be taking speakers currently. First, we will address the agenda, and then we will take the speakers, and we'll have a Q&A session. I see like five hands up, so you guys have to wait a little.
Um, Anya, can you add Rastik Rahul?
Sure, sending request.
Ron says he's inside the room.
Yeah. Okay, Rahul is in. He's in.
I'm here.
Rol, can you hear us?
I can hear. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll mute for now.
Yeah, me too.
All right, one more person. Blood. All right. Oh, she left.
I think you should start, Aru. I don't know. Buff didn't accept the request.
Oh, I thought she'd be hosting the whole thing. I'll get started on my own then. Um, Let me see what the agenda is.
Start by introducing. I think Anya has. Maybe she will
Yeah,
start.
Actually, it's your platform, so I just went to decide.
Ah,
Yeah, so that's why I went back to the audience. But we all know RST. They have some fabulous drafts. We have seen some of the awesomest reports. So I invited them today to help us a little, so that we can have awesome reports too. So over to you guys.
all right. I am Rumar, the R5 RST. My second command is here, Queen. So the scope of this discussion, um, the general scope. So, so who is this for? Generally, I say this is for 95% of um, Ebony players. Anyone who does not coin 6 or 7 figures, who can get away with not having a trap. Only those people will be excluded, will not benefit so much from trapping. But mid-level coiners, people coin 5 figures, maybe a year or 4 figures. This is what your this is a discussion for. So, as everyone knows, there is 3 types of traps: range, cav, and ground. Cav T1 cav is generally overall the best, as it deals with its weakness in multiple situations better. The second best is ground, and pretty much the weakest is range. But they still work, but it cannot really, specifically range, it cannot perform extremely at a high level. So if you're taking really strong rallies, range would not do that well, but mount will still do the best. Um, but I still, so for people who are building their alliances, who are cooperating with teamwork, I generally will recommend from a united standpoint to do mostly mount with a couple of ground, because ground excels in against range rallies. That's excellent. Um, so if the enemy team is used to using range rallies to kill your traps, you can easily switch it up with a range trap. So as everyone know, the base of a trap starts with the T1s. You can build a little bit of T2s and 3Ts and up, but do be extremely careful with T3s and up. And the reason for that is that it gives away a lot of points. And usually the power exchange, even though it will go in your favor, point-wise, it will not. So you can build a ton of T1s, 2 billion maximum possible, maybe a good amount of T2s, but a little bit of T3s and up, but not that much. So you don't start giving that enemy team too many points. So from there, talking about generals, you got to know the specific strength and the specific weaknesses of each trap. So starting with T1s, T1 mounts. So the generals generally don't matter too much, but they're still impactful. So what generally matters more is mostly the debuffs. So using a general that debuffs tends to be a little bit better, but not always. So it tends to be better if you have a lot of buffs, let's say 2K and above. And a debuffs in general might be a little bit more. But if you really low buffs, let's say less than 1,000, a overall general might be better. So depending on where your buffs is, a debuffs or a buffing general might be superior. Also, side note, Ebony is very as- complex. There's a lot of situations where A might be better for you, and there's different situations where B might be different better for you. I'm giving you guys generally the general overview, but unless I know your specific situation, sometimes my advice will not might not apply. So beyond that, so starting with let's say you're starting in the server, right? Um, completely starting the server, completely new. So the first thing you do is build a T1. That is kind of your foundation. Unless you have your T1 ready, you cannot PvP. unless you're spending a whole bunch of money. You need a T1 build. You need T1 build to protect your troops. Um, as a side note, there's two other. There's another type of build. It's no longer more popular since the rise of T1s, and that is a ghosting build. Uh, so this is important, but I'll mention why later. So once you build your T1s, depending what stage your server is at, you want between either 200 minimum before you start PvP or 500 minimum. So the older your server is, the higher your minimum T1s needs to be. So T1s. So let's see. After after you get K33, which is the first minimum requirement before you start PvP and get all your Archimedes gear, um, you start with refining. You cannot PvP until you refine, and the minimum refinement, if your coining is 950 or above for um attack, if you're free to play is 900 or above. Generally, the closer you are to the maximum, the better. Because each point matters a great deal. And do not forget you have flats also in your monarch gear and battle tested as well. So getting all those flats are extremely important to make your T1s perform. If you're having if you're rocking below 900 mono attack flats, you're not gonna do so well. You're not. So the most important thing to make your T1 work, repeating one more time, is your flats. The most important flats, obviously, is mount attack flats. The second most important is mount HP. Those two are the minimum requirement to make your T1 trap work. For mount defense flats, it's not that important. It does help, but does not make a great impact due to the way defense works. Um, this um, so for smaller keeps or free to play players, you go mount defense flats. But for bigger keeps, I generally recommend ground defense percentage. Usually, you have a nice chunk of ground that you need to protect. Um, so talking about
Hey, Aruf,
so
Aruf.
yeah.
Hey, real quick, go into the details of the power level build you need to be around. Like, you want to be what, 1.5 billion power, 2 billion power
Oh,
to be a decent
uh,
trap?
yeah.
Yeah. And
So
what level? What level starting? So when you're talking about the journals, so what he's saying is you refine on all your equipment, on your wall journals as well. Okay.
yeah.
And
So
then I would sell and go into the subs for debuffs as well.
yeah.
Usage.
All right. That's a good way. So where you want to be, like I said before, 200 mil to 500 mil, but I'm assuming everything else you have is complete other layers. At that stage, you can start tanking, tanking solo hits, but you need around 1 billion to 1.5 billion to start tanking rallies. With strong enough rallies, you can take any with with that amount of T1s, you can take any amount of rallies. Um, so what's the other thing you said, Rao? I keep losing focus here. So ah,
All right.
also
So going back into your builds, you said ghosting build, but you can ghost build. You can build like a, you know, starting out about 700 million T1s. It's starting point 500 million to get you. But when when you get there, it's your total key power level as well. When you start running, trying to run, you start getting into the like me, I'm 12 billion, but I'm smaller keep. But you get keeps, you get up there, try to run traps with 8 billion power, they get smashed if they don't have the T1s built just right.
yeah, that's
That's
most
what I
of
was
the
talking
T1s.
about.
Yeah, like Rao noted, your T1s what it dictates how many times it takes to kill you. And for ground and mount T1s, which I say often the better, those two are really good at protecting the range. And you can use the upper tier range from T12 to T14 to increase those layers, make them very, very thick as support for your T1 grounds and T1 mount. So from using those two combinations will improve drastically the performance of your trap. And generally, if you're using thicker layers for your T12 and above archers, a good archer defense general might be the direction that you want to go with. So when it comes to um, transitioning is the transitioning has to do with your. Let me repeat. Let me take a step back. Transitioning from a T1 build into a more rally joining keep, a more stronger keep, it's very painful. Very painful. Is And the reasons for that is that you create weaknesses and you make yourself a target. If you start building a lot of high tier grounds or a high tier range, or not, I take that back, a lot of high tier mounts or siege, you start getting attacked. How you say this, the power trade and the point trade off start tilting towards your enemy. So generally, the point you start transitioning is when your buffs are extremely. It starts improving by a lot, and usually that requires coining. So what that means, free to play players won't generally ever transitioning to a big, like let's say a big boy keep. They will never do that. They will never become 20 beat power or 15 beat power because you are required to coin in order to boost your buffs so you can protect your other tier troops. However, there are ways to get around that requirement, and the ways to get around it is through ghosting. So let's say free to players or very low coiners who cannot coin a ton, a couple hundred a month or thousands a month. So what it can do instead is use the ghosting tactic with combined with your T1 trap. So the way it goes is that you build enough mounts, enough ground, or enough siege to be able to ghost it in one march and have the proper general combined with that, and that will allow you to pretty much join rallies. But you also put a lot of pressure on your speeds. So you would join rallies with the ghosting march, use it, heal, and that's pretty much for free to play or low corner the highest they'll ever achieve when it comes to winning battlefields. But if you go beyond that, you start becoming a liability to your team, and you will make your team lose, and that's the fact of the reality. Um, So only, like I said before, repeating myself one more time, only those who coin a lot, a couple $100s a month, who can buy the buffs to get really strong defense and support the upper tiers, can transition slowly and start building their layers thicker. Everybody else has to use the ghosting tactic in order to keep up and heal those marches. In terms of debuffs, the debuffs that you focus is whatever counters your trap. So if you have a T1 ground trap, you'll focus on ground debuffs. If you have T1 mounts, you focus on anti range. And T1 range, I really don't recommend it that much, but you'll focus on anti ground in that case. Also, if you're using the T1 ground and T1 mounts combination with thicker range upper layers, T12 and above, you can just completely go all in on your range general because you stack a large amount of range troops in order to make your range general effective, as in order to join rallies. So everybody knows about basic tactics like um, port swapping or baiting. I mean, so I will not go too much over in that. Um, so I guess this will be quick. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Yeah, there are some questions.
Hmm.
Okay, let me start with one. Uh, Someone said she's 3B, so she can't ghost, obviously, and she's full flat. I think this
And
is when you said that a ghosting keep, you know, but you meant for a rally joining keep when you're a T1 trap, and then when you're transitioning to a rally joining keep.
so I guess I'll repeat that information one more time. So like I said before, um, for T1 trap or for low coiners specifically, low coiners or complete free to play, there are limits to how much you can grow, which is a good thing because this game requires an insane amount of resources. So it's not a good thing to build if you don't have the you don't coin enough to build, let's say, 20 billion power of troops. It's not a good thing. So instead, you're better off doing putting that resources into your keep to get a higher keep level. Going to K44 will be much more better than 20 billion power of troops. So the only thing as a trap you build is your T1s, which you are doing, and the range, T12 and above range to support your T1s. If you're using a T1 ground, T1 mount. So if you have 3 billion power, you need to make sure your siege, your mount, and your ground can be ghosted within 1 march, and use those to join rallies. Also,
Um,
uh, should
yeah.
have before I forget. I know somebody else requested this much more earlier. Rob, can you share some of your reports and how well they did? So everybody can have a clue what it looks like in the high end.
All right, one moment here. Go ahead.
Queen keeps asking questions so we can keep the whole thing going.
Yeah, you can share the reports, Rahal, in the chat.
Down in the chat. Okay.
Okay, so Aru, someone is asking, um, how many T1 grounds to support 1.5B T1 mount?
I say between 200 mil to 300 mil. It's good enough, but you need 100% of battle tested rooms in order to make that work. Because
Hey, that,
that's it.
okay.
Huh?
All right, that first one was that was just a solo transitioning after I was rallied. I'm finding the other one real quick here.
Yeah, you need to share the rally reports, Rahal.
Yeah, the
I'm
one
doing it
with
right
30.
now. Is that the right one? Let me go back here real quick. Yep. There we go.
Vay, can I hear us at all?
Another person is asking, if I get a T1 mount wall, but with that, if I have troops of higher tiers, all tiers 2, all tiers 2, then what will be the refining and what should be the free defense general? Can use Boudica still, or we should have Marshall or George?
Repeat that one more
Let's
time.
ignore that one.
You can delete it, Ral, and share again. If I get a T1 mount wall, okay, but with that, if I have upper tier troops also, then what will be the refining and what should be the free defense general? Can use Boudica still, or we should have Marshall or George?
Um, that depends on how much you coin specifically, but I'm assuming you complete free to play. So the same thing I said before applies, where you limit your upper tiers to 1 march only for your siege, range, and ground. So what general specifically, Budokai will strengthen your T1s, but will not protect your upper tier troops, and will not be enough to protect, like again, your upper tier troops. So generally, I recommend, or my general recommendation is usually trap range range generals for defense for and if you're using thick layers of range. That's generally the more efficient or optimized build in order to ensure you get the most amount of true points. Yeah, exactly.
Rue,
Taylor,
I shared that one.
excellent. Yeah,
Rue, I shared that one from Sharosa. The one, if y'all take a look at that one there.
NSG, it's a range
Um,
rally, and Ral didn't get zeroed. His T1 did all the killing.
Yeah.
that's another one. I got one more here. That's the one you wanted. Let me go mute real quick.
All right. So like Cammy said, Zachary Taylor is a great free-to-play option for to use as a defense general and to boost your range troop attack. Range. Yeah, Zachary Taylor William, that's an excellent choice. Azumi being extremely efficient. But if you're building a thick amount of ground or mount, then you need to switch. But generally, this is assuming your layers, your upper tier layers, are around 100k or so for your ground and for your mount. Then Zachary Taylor is an excellent choice.
Okay. What size layers of all other troops do you need with Mount T1 wall?
Um, so what I generally recommend for my guys to do is to build, let's say, between 100k to 300k. But however, to use the ghosting to ghost some of those layers as needed. So let's say they have 300k. I'll tell them use 50k layers as ghost and ghost about 3 or 4. So every time you get hit, you can just drop down the ghost and automatically repaired. That was before the whole heal thing came out, but it's still quicker to do that method.
Now, if y'all look at that last one I shared, actually, my T1s
It's
killed over
from
half the rally.
Val, yeah.
Yeah, T1s killed over half their rally. If you look at
Yeah,
that.
you can see that it killed 33 million from the rally.
Yes, that was the rally I was looking for.
Yeah.
So
So
generally, if Rao did not have um those T1s, he would have died. Rao, can you share your defense buffs so people can realize how low your defense buffs and how well you are doing against that rally?
sure, one moment.
Keep with the questions, Queen.
Yeah. Okay. One second. Let me scroll up. How many T1 and T2 are suggested to start? Then follow with what levels on upper up of all troop types.
If you're starting out, I said this depends on how old your keep is. In younger keeps, the buffs are not that high, but in older keeps, the enemy buffs that you face are extremely high. You can expect, like, for example, we are as rank 20 or something around there. And the people we face will have either bare minimum 4K buffs, but usually 5K is more common to face. And around that level is 500 million minimum. But in the lower or the younger servers, you can use 200 mil to start out. I usually do a recommend 10 to either 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 ratio, which is for every 10 T1s you have, you can do 1 T2s, or for every 5 T1s you have, you can do 1 T2s. Around there.
Yeah, Anya, you can just invite people because some are struggling to type. Yeah.
and
Okay,
there
Aru,
are
you
the
can see the buffs there.
All right, so there you can see Rao's buffs, and during the Val situation, it was lower. As you can see, the buffs are not that very high. He's facing NFG, who has extremely strong rally, who has 5,000 buffs, and they have multiple people around that level as well. So with the T1s, even though Rao's buffs are much on the weaker side, he can still survive hits. Well, any issue. If you can see it on the chat where he shared the report.
Also, we can touch a little on the debuffs, what a trap keep needs, and the most, FTP kind of debuff generals that they can get. Also, the request to speak are open now. If you want to speak, if you want to come up on the stage, just raise your hand and we'll get you up.
All right, so on the debuffs, we'll repeat it like what I said before. It depends what type of trap you're using. Um, if you're using a ground trap, you want to focus on mount debuffs. So you kind of have to go and find which the tavern generals, which has the most anti-mount. If you're using a T1, let's say a T1 mount, you got to go in the direction of anti-range. Whatever the weakness is, it's what you go anti up. And that you do that to cover the weaknesses, because that's the one that most enemies will attack you with. So ground
So be
anti-mount,
specific with that. So be
yeah,
specific with the generals you can get for free to play. Jackson's really good. I
yeah.
have 3 Jacksons. I have Cece as well. Okay, Nero, and there's another one out there to get your siege and range attack debuffs. Catherine,
Yeah, that's for
look for
bigger
her.
players.
No, she's actually free to play. Catherine is though, but you can get more siege and range debuff from that as well.
Yeah, that's
Um,
she's anti-range as well.
yeah, and but Jackson's pretty much your best bet with a combination of Nero and Cece.
Oh,
So
John Crow is another good one, but
yeah,
John
John
Crow is a
Carl
little bit overall.
takes a while.
If someone
Baldwin
is in the
is good. It just takes you time to build up. You can get Baldwin,
you
every other week to build up
or
enough to do
you're
that.
muted.
Aruko?
Yeah. So my question, bulking on T2, T3 after you have achieved the number of T1, is there any benefit in that?
Yes, specifically T1s, T2s are the attacking. They're not really T1s are the tanking, but T2s and T3s are the tanking. You don't want to build too much due to the power. They give away a lot of points for their power. So you can build those to order to increase the amount of hits that your troops does. And it is more recommended for people who are in the bigger size, like 30 or 20B, who have very thick upper tier mounts. So the bottom tier will have more rounds to attack.
Okay, so say I'm at the 500 million T1 threshold. What should my T1 and T2 and T3 numbers look like around there?
Um, I generally recommend 100 to 10 to 1 starting off, which is 100 T1s for every 10 T2s and for every 1 T3s. So 500 mil T1s will be 50 million T2s and 5 million T3s. Around that much.
Okay, excellent. And then one other question that I had, I have been seeing debuff generals on the wall. Is that actually better for traps?
Um, like I said before, it depends on your position. If you're somebody who has very low defensive buffs, let's say below 1,000, a buff in general will do you much more better. If you're somebody with much higher buffs, let's say above 2,000, then a debuff in general might do you perform better.
Okay, so
And that
exceeding buffs, you could use a debuff general, but with lower buffs, you want the additional buffs from the buffing general.
Yes. And the
Okay.
reasons for that has to do with the way the battlefield formula works, which is all about ratios. You don't want the enemy ratios to be insanely high. And the best way to lower those ratios is usually through buffs. But at a certain point, debuffing becomes slightly better. And that is due to debuffing. You have more debuffing than you have buffing wise if you compare the raw numbers. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but you get the slight idea.
Excellent. Answered my question thoroughly. Thank you, guys.
Welcome. Anybody else?
I think
Thank you.
NSEC also wants to be in speakers.
Yes, please raise your hand. I'll pull you up.
Also,
Uh,
for the ratios, you can go. This is the 100 to 10 to 1 is the kind of the minimum, but if you want the maximum, it is 25 to 5 to 1. if I'm correct. And that is do not go over that, which is for every 25 T1s, you want 5 T2s and 1 T3s. That is the absolute maximum. Do not go above that.
Okay,
So
Mobius is there? Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Mobius.
How you guys doing?
Pretty well.
All right. Well, my question more pertains to the fact that I've been understood to be built as a hybrid. I got this account. I didn't build it myself. I respect its power, but I'm trying to more understand being a hybrid, having a ton of archer for my defense, and I have a ton, 1.5 billion T1, all refines being flats to Cav. Now, I heard you say something earlier that kind of interests me a lot to help my defense on an archer rally, which is ground. Um, Based on the fact that I'm already a hybrid, I was gonna try to transition a bit from my defense putting ground percentage and also putting Brock fully specced out to help me with Cav and ground. I just didn't know what insights were to that because I've seen different reports that I did better with Zachary on my wall, and then I've seen different reports where I've done better with Brock on my wall as assistant.
All right. So, like you said, is everything's pretty much situational. That's one of the complex things about Ebony. So the first question I have for you is, what do you mean by hybrid? Like, what combinations of which trap T1s are you using of?
Basically, what I mean by hybrid is I have marches of every troop type. Like you were saying, the ghost thing, I kind of cut down so that I'm able to ghost a very good, if not all, majority because before I couldn't. But now I'm able to ghost the counter of what's coming at me. Say when that arch is coming, I'm able to get rid of my top tier arch and my calf.
So wait. So, uh, if I understand correctly, you're ghosting your archers if incoming range is coming in.
Correct. I've been doing that.
So you're not using T1 mounts, correct? You're not.
I am. I am. I got 1.5 bill.
Okay, so normally you're not supposed to ghost archers. Yes, you're upper tier ground. Your archers is supposed to help you kill the enemy archers.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're completely outclassed or something, like 5,000 attack coming in, and you only have like 800 or so.
100%. Yeah, I'm dealing with around 5,200 buff. I've been getting rallied with 50, 45 million. Like I'm getting hit definitely on the bigger scale.
So how much is your range attack?
I believe my range attack is around 1,900.
That's pretty decent. So around that stage, you really don't need to ghost your range. Instead, what you want to do is increase your range attack debuff.
Okay.
So okay, so I got the answers, the required information. Um, so repeat your question one more time.
Okay, so basically, I'm trying to because I am a free to player. I am free to play. I don't coin at all. Never mind the whole cake things and all that fun stuff.
Hmm.
So I'm actually running something where my question is more based off of what can I do to actually enhance my defense because I'm not going to take that turn that you were talking about, which is being the 20 bill and all this stuff because it requires to keep enhancing your buffs and stuff like that.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to stay really strong and helpful at the same time. But that is what I'm trying to actually figure out. I'm trying to get a grab of the actual account and what's going to keep it, keep getting it stronger and stronger because I'm only a K40. I'm running 9 subs. I'm running Mark Anthony, 3 Neros, 1 Darius, Hojo, and a Jackson with a 60.
All right, so you're doing pretty much so far all the correct things. So the additional things you can do is increase your T1 range in T1 ground, specifically the ground. But in order to make that work, you need the battle tested. You don't want to increase it too much. You want to start off with 100 million, up to 200 million or so, and that will also help boost the damage that those troops deal against the range that's coming in. And the reason you can get away with that is because for the T1 range, your T1 mount protects all range. The incoming range will not attack the range until all your mounts are dead. For the ground,
Oh,
same thing. So for the ground, it's a similar situations. Um, for incoming range, typically they will attack the mounts and your range first, then the ground. So T1 mounts, T1 ground, first thing you can do. The second thing you can do, this one it's no, free to play, so I can't recommend this one. This one for Bitcoiners. Um, the second thing you can do if you have excess resources, I'm not sure if that situation applies to you. You can start building traps, specifically the ground anti-ground traps, and this will help you clear through the enemy ground and much more faster. So one of the things you can do, or one of the things to try to aim for, is to clear enemy layers faster so your mounts can get to the range. Because when it comes to one-on-one mounts versus range without any layers protecting the range, the mounts will win. So the faster you
okay.
clear the layers, the ground and the mount layers, the better you would do. So T1, so those smaller traps, if you have excess resources, also help. The second thing
I'm
you can
6.2 billion.
6.2. So you most
Yeah.
likely get hit. Yeah, so you most likely will get with range rallies no matter what. So keep doing
Hmm.
and focusing your anti-range debuffs. Uh, Besides that, I'm pretty sure you're not ghosting Siege, right? You're not doing that.
I am ghosting Siege because believe it or not, that has been one of the most things that I've been getting soloed by. Believe, and that's without a scout. I don't know why. Usually it's ground or something like that that they'll try to wipe out something of my size. But I do get hit with siege, so I try to get rid of the siege. They hit me, then they're killing my arch top tears because if there's no siege, it goes after your arch. So I try to get rid of.
Morbius, if you can share your reports and a
Okay,
scout report and add it to the chat, we will be able to answer it accordingly. We will be able to see your buffs as well. It will be easier for you to explain as well. Till
okay.
then, we have another speaker, Koraksh. Hello.
Yes, hello. I'm on Keep 41, 10.5, 10.6 billion power. My question is if there is any way to protect my range better against CH because I'm getting rallied with CH like quite often and my top tier range are getting cleared. And even if I'm ghosting them, the problem is I will get second rally calves and my range it's clearly not doing nothing. It's just sitting there and looking pretty.
So the answer is no. It is intentionally designed by Ebony to make that an innate weakness. You can look at the K factor during the battle on the battle formulas. Siege is meant to counter range. So the things you can do are very, very limited. So what you can do is, in during this situation, is increase your highest tier range. If you got T15's range, you gotta pump that one up. T14's as well. And after that, you got to increase your range HP and range defense. As you worry about specifically protecting your range. Besides that, or the standard way of protecting your range is just becoming extremely, extremely big and building a lot of siege. Because when it comes to siege versus siege, range versus siege, usually not always, but siege tends to perform a little bit better. Um, but if your range HP and range defense is high enough, it will go on your favor no matter what. So it's just pure stat stacking. That's the only thing you can do. There's nothing else when it comes to getting siege to kill your range.
Okay, thank you for the information.
Yeah.
Um, can I ask a question, Aru?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, someone typed a paragraph. Hello, well, I have some questions. Sorry if you already replied then, as I just knew about the event. Okay. Regarding the traps. First question, trap fights buffs with troops, but for big players, buff plus march size overpower troops. So what should be the size of layers for traps to be able to stop big players hit? Example, it's not the same to stop a hit from K44 with 6 million march and a hit from 8 million March, even if their buffs are similar. Do you think, a second question, do you think traps will be effective in the long term of the game? Third question, shouldn't mount traps keeps like 4B also work in mounted debuff as big keeps usually save the archers for bigger targets?
Um, so okay, so that's a lot of questions. So Queen, we need to repeat them one by one.
Okay,
I
the
will
first one,
focus on
the march
the
size, the what would be the layers because each attacker march buffs plus march sizes are vary, overpowering the troops.
so when it comes to that situation, how you say this, it's mostly focusing on your basics and and your foundations. Make sure your flats up to pair, your buffs are up to pair. Because it's really stat versus against stat, and what you can do specifically for that will not change. For example, there is a march called an anti T1 march. I do not want to spread that information, but it's really, really difficult to beat a anti T1 march if anybody know how to build it correctly. And and the only way to build it or beat that is simply to increase the thickness of your layers. But again, the thicker your layers are, the downside is that you give away more points and kind of defeats the point of a T1 trap. So what can you do is pretty much the ghosting tactic. That's the only thing I can think of. It is to have a fairly strong or have one march. Like, yeah, it's not much you can do besides just focus on your foundations and what you should already be doing. If I understand your question correctly.
Okay, the second one, do you think traps will be effective in long term of the game?
So we play in a very high level, facing against VIG, which has the strongest, so far the strongest rallying power of all Ebony. So I say the answer is yes. So far, as of right now, traps do have a place on high level play. But this might change in the future. At the end of the day, I don't know. It really depends how Ebony does their balancing. So for example, battle tested is a great buff to trap keeps. You're able to get it, able to build it, put on your setting general and your main defense general, and that's a buff to trap keeps. So if anyone wants to boost trap keeps, they will keep releasing more ways to do flats. But uh but but Ebony keeps releasing percentages because at a certain point, traps will not work. For example, T6 teams extremely, extremely strong, a little bit overpowered, especially Team 16 ground, and that will pretty much just completely destroy you. We as an alliance are still struggling in order to deal correctly with T16s because 5,000 buffs or 6,000 buffs with T16s, no matter what, it will destroy you. And that is completely up to Ebony, not. But so far, right now, T1s are still good in high level play. What's the third question?
Shouldn't mounted trap keeps like 4B also work in mounted debuff as big keeps usually save the archers for bigger targets?
Um, the answer is yes, but it's not your main focus. Generally, you also are covering ground debuffs and a little bit of siege debuffs, but your main focus will be anti-range. So if you're getting destroyed by a mount rally using T1 mounts, that means you got to focus your fundamentals more, which is getting your battle tested and getting your refines correctly and having enough T12 um T12 and above archers to support because it is enduring against mount rallies is your T12s archers and above that are supporting your T1 mounts. And overall, you should be doing good against mounts and ground. The only ones you will struggle with are is the range rally.
Hey, Arun, I got a question here from, let me put it up here. Trying to pronounce his name. Getting your name wrong. Sorry. NS says, question is, I've heard that T6 and T7 calves are needed to kill range attacks. Is this correct? High number. Is that your question?
T6 and
Exactly. T7
T5.
calves kill most against range attacks. Was his question, which is no.
Um, yeah, the answer is no.
No, that gives away a ton of points to your
Yeah,
opponent.
that's the issue. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, you're trying to win, and the way to win is being optimizing correctly and being efficient. Because if you didn't need to optimize and everybody gave the same ratio of points, then you can build extremely thick T2s, T3s, and just go all the way up there. So generally above T4 mounts and above is not something you want an insane amount of, even though when it comes to the ports, they still get a ton of kills. The issue is that they give away a lot of points, and that is very, very problematic. Let me find the screenshots so people can better understand what I mean by that. So if somebody can talk while fine, that'd be great.
Uh, do you want another question?
I need a moment to find so people can understand just how much points they
Okay.
give away.
Okay.
So Queen, if you want to take over for a bit, that'd be great.
I know I have questions here.
All right, so I'll try to answer the questions while I'm finding it.
Okay. I have a question. He can't come to the stage, but a key part of trapping is layering which hits to take and which ones to avoid. Part of that long question was about taking hits from different size opponents. Could you give some advice for everyone about choosing which hits to avoid?
That is completely, utterly situational. Ultimately, should know what you can take or can't not take. There's no general rule of thumb. For example, a strong T1 can take range rallies or range hits and still come out positive. So the only thing you will always, always, always will want to evade is the anti-T1 march, which I will not tell people what they are because I do not want that spreading around. You will know because they will go positive and they are fairly, fairly strong.
Also, guys, if you ask questions, please make sure that you're telling us your buffs, the amount of T1 wall that you have, what kind of trap you are, cav or ground, and the size, so that we can tailor the questions accordingly. Like when you ask us very randomly, then what should I do? Without giving us any backstory or the context on what you're asking about, it's a difficult to build up on it. So if you
Correct.
want very on the point advice which will actually help you, we will need context, and then we can guide you accordingly. So when you're asking questions, please give us the context first.
So, all right. So I found what I was looking for. Um, this this comes from Derek. For those who know him, the chart comes from him, so that's just the source. I posted the chart in the chat, so guys take a look of it. Let me put in ping everyone in that one. So as you can see, um, let's talk about Battlefield specifically. For Battlefield, your T1s are giving away 1.1 points for every power that they lose. But the moment you start going into T4s, T3s, they're giving away 3.6 for every power that they lose. So so that means you need to lose. This need to lose three times as much T1s power wise, like 3 billion worth of T1s, in order to match the amount of points given away of 1 billion um, worth of power of T4s or T5s or so on. So overall, the T5s, T6s, and so on do not perform that well. And overall, it becomes a losing trade, even though the power wise on the report it looks good. So the next question.
Yeah. Okay. Do we need to refine subgears if uh, do we need to refine subgears? If yes, what should we do?
Oh man, if you're rich, you can. Extremely rich, yes, you can refine those sub gears. Otherwise, the answer is no, because there are better places to put in those resources.
They die anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Hmm.
Uh, Someone was asking how to get selected to All Star. I can't find the question. Is a T1 trap like 10B or something? What are the best ways to get selected to All Stars if he's in a uh, like decent alliance?
So getting to All Stars is completely. Did I say completely? Completely. Let me say one more time. Completely depending on your alliance. A good alliance will get you to All Stars. Like for example, RST, we're getting 16 people in our team to All Stars, and 12 of them are going to the major leagues. Um, and it has to do with the battlefield tactics that you deploy. So for trap keep, which is pretty much the majority of us, um, it comes to the tactics deployed by your team, where the bigger players scale back on their march and scale back on and start missing a couple of rallies in order for the younger or the weaker players to join. Getting selected to All Stars is completely depending on your marching attack buffs. That needs to be fairly high as well, and your march size. So it is mostly a team-based. Um, the condition is mostly team-based. You need to have really, really strong cooperation with your team. Otherwise, it'll be insanely difficult. So let's say in case you don't have, because for example, um, one of the tactics, especially for pure traps to get to all stars, is switch and bait, which is rallying a keep. Let's say a ground rally, and you're a trap with T1 mount trap. You can port swap with that player and take on that ground and get a lot of points that way. Again, it takes a lot of teamwork to get selected to all stars. So it depends on your team.
There's another question. When do I use ground defense refines instead of mounted defense refines for a mounted T1 trap?
All right, so ground percentage. Remember, percentage that's refines versus mount flats. Um, you use that when you are among the bigger size. For example, for my team or my alliance, I usually recommend that around 14 or 12B or 15B and above, and that's usually when you have a very thick amount of ground, around 10 million to 5 million or so. But if you are on the smaller side, it is mount flats that defense flats that will perform better for you. The ground percentage is meant to help protect your ground. That's the intention.
Right. So the another question is, how high are the usual max debuffs when attacking without subs? This means solos and rallies.
Um, I don't know what's the point of that question.
His question is that answering that could answer what to aim for at minimum when developing in city buffs. Uh, I like to add another thing here too. If you're asking about your buffs, please tell us about your keep level and other details so we can answer accordingly.
Um, Generally, assuming no subsidies, generally the thing is get as much as you can. But that's again, you got to be the kind of wealthy player. But you want to know what you aim for. You aim for based on what you tend to get hit on the most. For example, your T1 trap, 10 billion power or so, getting hit by a lot of range, and you got some money to spend. You generally will aim for anti HP range HP and anti range attack. Those two, assuming no subs. Um, but yeah, it's a weird question for me. Like, not really. uh, All right, next one.
Right. Okay, guys, if you have more questions, if you will like to speak, please raise your hand. And
Many people use 1 second, Anna, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Many people use mounted troop speeds on assistant. If I change that with archer attack, will it be beneficial or harmful?
Mount speed.
Yeah, he's saying that he has mounted speed in assistant. Many people use mounted troop speed on assistant. If I change that with archer attack, will it be beneficial or harmful?
I thought it was already proven that mount speed and ground speed do not have any serious impact. So get rid of. I'm part of the camp that mount speed and ground speed do not have any impact because if they did, that will completely change the way Battlefield works. So get rid of ground speed, get rid of mount speed, use range attack obviously, or the any other buffs, even mount attack. So yeah.
Next one. I've only just become a K37 2.5B power. I have
Hmm.
20 million all tier 1, 2, 3, and 3. Then I have 5 million troops upper tier 9 and around 2 to 3 million of tier 10 of everything up to tier 14. I only have 8 purple subcities. What is the best gear to have on the subcity generals and how many troops should I have in them? I am using all debuff generals roughly around 20% just in case that makes any difference.
All right. So T1 trap, 5 million upper tiers, and how much for lower two tiers, Queen?
20 million only yet, still.
20 million T1s?
Mm-hmm.
20 million T1s?
Yeah, she has only 20 million, 1, 2, 3, and then 5 million of 9 to 9, and 2 to 3 million of 10, and then 10 to up till 14.
Okay, so you really need to pump those T1s up by a lot. Like I said, I recommend before between 200 and 500 million T1s. That is pretty much the bread and butter of T1s. So I say pronto get that up as soon as possible. Um, Unless you have insanely high defense, which is above, let's say, 3K or 4K. So get those T1s up. Yeah.
Someone Panda said that's not a trap, it's a snack.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, I would strongly recommend for you not to PvP. It's pretty much required. Yeah.
Okay, there's one more. Um,
Uh, we got another speaker, Punisher.
yeah, speaker is there. Yes, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hey, Punisher.
How are you doing, guys?
Pretty well.
Awesome job with this chat and with this voice call. So I come from server 1294. I am in C5. We are been to All Star Majors couple of times and in All Stars 2 times as well. We are a new alliance, PvP alliance.
Hmm.
We think we are a PvP alliance at least. Um, So we are. I am 437 in this season. I am almost in the top 400 for All-Star Majors. We're trying to bring one dragon back home, the first one of the server actually.
Hmm.
So my wall is refined for a trap defense. I have been a trap defense in the past, but I realized that defense is a very expensive hobby. So I'm pretty focused and relying on my attacking buffs. I have a good defense. We beat a keep 42 last round, and we are only registering 20 billion per round. We are a couple of keep 39s fighting. So I have a good master. I like my allies, you know. But what is your best advice after I get it to All Star Majors to go to the top 200 to get the egg? Just heal marches and join rallies all the time.
Yeah, yes. So I don't know how C5 All Stars is different from C2 All Stars. So my experience limited to extremely overly powerful players. So generally All Stars, what helps a lot is your offense more than your defense. And the reason for that is because the All Star rallies that you take are extremely, extremely strong, at least in situations. And the trade off is not usually worth it, especially if you're trying to make your team win. So very often, everybody advises in All Stars is to dodge rallies if you don't have a strong defense, and you require at least a near perfect T1 build. I mean, minimum 2 billion, obviously, to in order to take a All Stars rally. I have a couple myself, but that's really dig down. So what I recommend is what you have been doing, which is increasing your March attack and March size for in order to join rallies and pretty much start dodging as much incoming rallies as you can towards the later
I
half. Till the later half, when rally starts becoming a little bit weaker, and you can start handling ground and mountain rallies. If you're struggling or with points or such, what you can start doing in the second half, not the first half, is trying to find out where the ground rallies and the mountain rallies are going and try to pour in. Because people will be pointing out, and if your team one is strong enough, you want to pour in and absorb all those points. So that's one of the things you can do on All Stars.
I am honestly since a long time not building towards defense. So I really don't have an option to go get points by defending. Uh, I have the buffs, but my troops are not there. So I'm just 3 billion. I'm keep 39. I'm VIP 16. I just upgrade the May 4 and did the Mars size research. Not the Academy 39 yet. Uh,
Mhm.
the problem is not the majors. The only problem is, do you think I will get enough kills? Considering my stats, I have about 2400 in rally attacking buffs. I'm
That
not a
really
mega coin.
depends on your competition, honestly. For example, obviously in C2 you would not make it no matter what, but I don't know what the situation in C5 is. If your attacking buffs are good relative to the ones people around you, then yes, you will make it. But if they're averagely below or worse, they will not. What I can recommend is being efficient. Try to join every single one and try to, if you're running out of speeds or anything like that, try to use T12 archers or T12, the T12 units, except for Siege, which is T13. And that's it. It really depends how good you are compared to everybody else. It's all
Another
stars.
question: if you ever seen that I am building my sieges well, according to that I am a low coiner. I have only one March siege at the moment, and it is completely made for T11 bombs. So it's flat refines on the weapon, on the ring, and I am focusing only the HP buff at the moment. I don't have any particular general, only Zuka 2 stars, but have you ever seen that happening again? Like a completely T11 general, T11 March with the
Yeah,
refines and everything?
we had to phase that out. Our alliances, we no longer use T1s. And the reason for that is that once you start getting fighting against T15s or T16s, T1s start doing terribly in terms of they give away too many points and we're not able to bring enough points in.
T11, sorry,
Yeah,
T11.
T11s.
T11s, yeah, T11s.
Yeah, so as time goes on, those T11s will be gone. You cannot be able to use them because, again, your team will lose no matter how good the power differential is. And that is due to you facing keeps with T15s or T16s. They're okay against T14 and down, but the buffs start improving a lot at those stages. So they will not last long.
Is a keep
And for
45, bro. Next All Star is gonna be even worse because many more keep 45 will be around.
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed on some of the builds people are posting, real seriously, try to keep your T4 to T11 uh, troops around 1 million each if you're a trap keep. Don't go 2 or 3 million in those levels yet. You're not ready for it. That once again, it's about the point swap. It is easily to heal, you know, your layers, but your layers don't need to be T4 to T11, no more than 1 million, T4 to T10. Not two. I'm seeing 2 and 3 and 4 million in those layers,
Yeah.
um, and that kills your point swap.
All right. So
Those
to
layers
add
will
on,
go.
to what Route said, it is your T12 and above that are your killing layers. They are meant to kill the big chunks of the enemy troops. But anything, let's say T10 or T9 or below, except for T1s, are your attacking layers. They're meant to kill the enemy's layers. And the reason for that, you don't want them, like Ralph said, too high, is simply because they give away too many points. Let's say, for example, sometimes we face a keep with, let's say, 400, 4K siege attack on defense, but all their upper tier siege are gone. We will rally that guy again and again if the only thing left is middle tier siege, simply because those are massive amounts of points for our team. Even if you go and the power up goes badly, they say we lose 2 billion, 3 billion rally against you only taking away let's say 1 billion in terms of siege, and we're losing 3 billions on the rallies, that'll still go positive for us in terms of the score. And that is because again the middle tiers give away the most amount of points. That is pretty much the meat of a keep. That's the part that you want to go after. That's the part that you want to kill.
Right. So another question is, it's a K37, 3.5 billion. He says he has 300 million T1 range, layers with 2K. He says, I think I'm no longer a trap. Should I build T2s and T3s of ground and range, or only range to make my defense more effective?
So you're using a T1 range trap. Like I
Yeah.
said before, that is the weakest of all three types of traps. Uh, just for several different reasons. One, you cannot use the upper tier layers um to support your keep overall. So in terms of the upper tier or the upper limits of that type of trap, you will not go very high. So my recommendation for you is to either switch to a T1 ground or T1 mount trap and leave your T1 range still there, but to use them as support because you are lacking in the protection department to protect your T1 range. So repeat again the question again, Anya. Anya, is she there? Oh, I guess she's
She's out. I,
uh,
can I ask another question?
sure.
I'm a 3.5B K39, 250 million T1, 45 million T2, 10 million T3. I'm flat refined for Cav. How many T1 ground arch would I want, and would I need to change my refines?
Um, I've already said this before, between 100 million to 300, around that march, around that amount. Assuming you have above 1 billion T1 ground. Generally, 10 to 1 is for general recipes you want to follow. 10 to around that much. Uh, does that answer the question?
She has only 250 million T1
Yeah, you want to pump
for
that number
Cav.
up first. Yeah, you want to pump up that number first. The
Yeah.
reason you start switching to T1 ground and T1 range is simply because you cannot build any more no more T1s ground. Um, so let me repeat that again. So the reason you start building T1 range or T1 ground is because you cannot build any more T1 mounts. And T1 mounts, if you refine for it, are the most efficient. But sometimes you gotta find ways to squeeze out a little bit more power, and that's when you go up to a T1 range or T1 ground when you are a T1 mount trap.
Okay, the other one. What are your thoughts on a bigger player that swapped to a trap halfway through a battle, starting off with siege based defense with buff percentage general gears, so up to T1 World General with flat gears.
I can say that is the RST secret. All my players, all my fighters are pretty much have a backup T1 build to swap over to once they are completely zeroed. That is pretty much mandatory in the high level plays. So yes, that is an excellent idea to switch to a T1 trap once you are zeroed or about to die. So let me pull some of my reports. I got a bunch of those. Um, somebody, let's see. We can take over for a bit so I can start sharing a bit.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have any more questions, raise your hands or message in the chat.
For larger keeps, that what gears do you need to refine for flats? I only do few refines. Few. So okay. Now, if you want to go for a full T1 cab trap, you'll have to have all the cab flat refines in all gear. It doesn't matter which gears you're using. Mostly you have archer gears. Now you can upgrade into Parthian or whatever that is. So you do all cab flats and then get your maximum T1s, 2.4B or whatever the cap Ivoni has given. And then to increase your power, if you don't want to go for a rally filling keep to join your rally, rally team, you can still increase your T1 ground and range like Karumar suggested, just as a support. And that's it. So it doesn't really matter if what is your gears are. If you want to stay as a flat cav trap, uh, percentages are matter when you want to build higher tier troops, and then you are a coiner that you can still protect your top tier siege and cavs.
All right. I posted my defense report. This is when I was about to die, or I can remember I got zeroed already. This is when I turned myself into a trap. As you can see, I'm in 5.1B. Normally, I'm much more bigger, around 40 billion power, but
You
here I
can't
was
see.
close.
Did you post?
Yes, I posted my defense report
Ah,
and
okay,
ping,
okay, okay. Yeah, we see. Yeah, I can see. Sorry.
and this is what I do. One minute I'm about to die, about to be killed, turn myself into a T1 trap, and then that way I still get off good trades against the enemy team.
And then in this way, you can even port swap to ground and cav rallies also.
Correct. Any more questions?
No, one was asking, I answered, but then I think you will have more to add to it. For larger keeps, what gear do you need to refine for flats? So I only do a few refines. So question is it okay to do only few flats?
Larger keeps. I'm not sure if you said this, Queen, but for larger keeps, the only difference is you go ground defense percentage in terms of
Yeah.
refinements. That's the only difference in larger and smaller keeps for traps.
Right. So guys,
So
we'll be taking some last questions because
yeah,
we've been going for like it's been almost 2-ish hours. So also, yeah, like people, we can also answer questions in the Discord chats as well. So in case if you do not get an answer to your question, you can always tag somebody from RST, and I'm sure they will respond. So we'll take last few bunch of questions.
Hmm. Any questions?
so I'm a mature K36 1.4B modest cab trap with very thin layers T2 to T10. Are you saying I should upgrade my T11 to T11 to T12.
Or which type of troop?
She didn't specify which type of troops, maybe everything. 1.4B power.
4. Um, Generally recommend the most efficient troop is usually T12s for mounts and range. For siege, we are at the stage where T11s do not work for T11 siege, T11. So if you were in my position, but this is T5, so T11s might still work. So for range and mount, yes, you should upgrade your T11 to T11 to T12s. All right. I'm assuming there's no more questions. The
T11 and T12 range, she's asking.
Yeah, you can upgrade your T11 range to into T12. T12 is pretty much the most efficient troop there is. Yeah, Timberland. I replied to that. That is two situation.
Yeah, yeah, I typed already. He already answered that.
Rue, there's a question about dragon refines
Um,
on your wall, General.
Again, that is situational as well. It can be siege attack if you're big, mount attack if you're T1 trap. It can be pretty much it really
He says
depends.
for a mounted. He says for a mounted T1 trap. Recommendations for wall general for a mounted T1 trap.
Again, that is
Um,
situational. For
yeah.
example, if you're pure T1s, no upper T12 range support, then you focus on something like Budokai that further enchants your T1s. But if you're using T12 and above archers, you want to focus on someone like Zachary Tillery, and that will help you more to deal with against mount range rallies. So it really depends what your situation is and where you want to counter. For example, Zach, much more better to deal with mount rallies if you want to strengthen your archers, or you want to use a debuff in general, you can do that instead. So it depends where your weakness is, and you want to enforce that weakness.
Okay, so for a T1 mount trap, I'm going to answer, I think, the question he's asking. T1 mount trap for a dragon refines, I recommend mount attack flat. You get really good results with mount attack flat buffs on your wall dragon refinements for a T1 trap. So what time's lunch? No, I'm just kidding.
So thank you so much, guys. This has been absolutely helpful, and we would like to have you uh, again soon. And thank you so much for the information that you have shared here. And the audience, thank you so much for the interaction.
Thank you for having us,
Thank
Anya.
you so much
All
for the
right.
invitation, Anya, and we are delighted to be here and share some of our experience.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
And if there are any questions, you guys can ask in the Discords as well. They'll be happy to help as well.
Also, guys, I'm sorry to say this as well, but after this, please do not message me to go over your keeps. And don't have much time, and I really can't go through everyone's keeps like that. I have to give my own. Whatever time I have left, I usually give over to my own guys. So I'm not. So don't ask me that. So
No,
yeah,
don't overwhelm it. It gets when people text you a lot, it gets a little overwhelming because
yeah,
you have game. This is a game like you have real life. You have people in your alliance, so it gets a little too much for people who
yeah.
really do want to help, but they're too polite to tell you that, later.
Yeah. So I apologize for that.
Thank you so much, guys.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you so much. Thanks, Anya, and thanks everyone for joining. And see
All
you
right.
again.
All right. See you later, guys. It was fun. I hope to do this another time.